Welcome to the David Toddcast. That's a working name. We'll see where we land. But thanks for being with me. It's Friday. It's noon. It's September 20. It's a beautiful day, and it is a great football weekend ahead. But can I start with something non-sports related? Refrigerators. Seriously, I got to tell you, if I'm in my kitchen right now, the Turkish prison is actually my kitchen, and my fridge went down last week, so I spent some time online, as people do, and I found a great deal for a refrigerator, and it's almost identical to the size of the refrigerator that I currently have. And guess what? They couldn't get it up the stairs. My stairs, this is a townhouse, my stairs are, 36 inches wide, whatever it is. This thing's like 30 wide, 32 inches wide. My stairs have a banister. They curve at the top. What's going on with the design of houses and stairs where you make it so it's like garages? You can't get appliances, you can't get couches. Yeah, if you got a $10 million house and you got French doors and everything, getting stuff in and out, no problem. But the rest of these places, why is everything designed so things fit by this much? And in this case, they don't fit by this much. So I'm gonna have to take the banister off the side of this one long banister that's been glued and put together, take that apart, undo it, and then, fingers crossed that the guys who came the other day to put it in can get it out and can get the one that's in here out as well. So those are the traumas of Friday for me. Flying fridges, let's put that with flying cars. Appliances that can actually fit in your house, without guys dying to try and get them in. All right, let's talk some football. And the topic, as always, is the quarterback position with the Steelers. And I've got a lot to say about this. And I've said a fair bit on Twitter. If you're a Twitter user, check me out at David M. Todd. If you're a baseball fan, it's at DT on Pirates. I think this is an interesting tightrope for Mike Tomlin to walk, because there are a couple things going on here. And I actually think there are a couple things going on here that are at odds with one another with long-term and short-term goals. So the Steelers are 2-0. And if you're Mike Tomlin, your first objective, and for the 53 guys that are out there each week, or the 48 guys who are dressed on game day, first goal for the staff and everybody else, obviously, is to win the football game. And for that, boom, boom, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers get 2 check marks. They're 2-0. The Ravens are 0-2. The Bengals are 0-2. So it is a significant step up, leg up that the Steelers have on those 2 AFC North competitors. So in many ways, you'd say, look, we can find fault with all 32 teams and what they've done through 2 weeks of the season. The Steelers are no different, but the Steelers are 2-0. So in that case, they're different than a lot of these teams. So let's get that on the table, that the season to date has been a rousing success. Now, as always, how did you get there? And what did you learn about your football team in the process? And Mike talks about this all the time. It is a work in progress. And I don't think we, as analyst fans, whatever we are, I don't think that there is enough kind of leeway given to the fact that both players and coaches, get better at playing and coaching as the season goes on. And that's certainly something that you expect from a team. And I think, we've seen that with Mike Tomlin teams. And I think where you've seen that most noticeably over the past 2 seasons with the Steelers is offensive line play. They've kind of had to mix parts and had some additional parts or new additions put into the offensive line each of the last now 3 years. And it's a work in progress. And, this year, obviously, with 2 rookies now starting at center and at right tackle, a second-year guy with 0 background playing. Anderson is playing at guard in place of Sam Alou. So you've got a lot going on in the Steelers situation and expect to see improvement. But the point is, the quarterback position, you have a really unique situation. You have 2 guys who are veterans. Look, I know Justin Fields is a young guy. He's 25 years old. I've pointed out a couple times. He's 9 months younger than Kenny Pickett. He's made 42 NFL starts. That's, almost 3 seasons of NFL starts. And Russell Wilson, of course, a grizzled veteran at this point in time. But I think this is a super fascinating situation for Mike Tomlin, and here's why. Look, we talked about he's gotten the wins. And I, as much as anybody, have been, I don't want to say disappointed, because I understand Mike Tomlin's philosophy. And if I were in Mike Tomlin's shoes, I might have done exactly what Mike Tomlin's done. Because the goal, again, is to win football games. And with the defense the Steelers have, and now the position they're in, it's, keep chalking up the wins. But the problem with the Steelers, and this is a problem when you look at this team that they've had for, toward the end of Ben's career, is they just can't compete offensively with the best teams in the NFL. And there's no doubt that the NFL has become a much more offensively dominated league. Now, we'll get into it a little bit later in the show about the trend so far this year with points being down, the passing game being down. But generally, the point is, we've seen the offensive explosion that has happened with the rule changes that have made scoring points easier. And if you're a team that can't consistently put up 20 points, you can't compete for a title in the NFL. It's just the way it is. The teams that are winning games in the playoffs are the teams that can score a lot of points. So I understand what Mike Tomlin's done here, because the goal is to win games and get to the playoffs. But my concern is what we have seen nothing from Justin Wilson that we didn't know he already had. When people talk about he's learning the system and he's growing and all that, okay, maybe. He's certainly learning the system. It's a new offense. It's a new city. But, we've been doing this now since August 1st. Played a lot in the preseason. He's had 2 full games now, and yet we've seen nothing in terms of ability to attack the middle of the field, ability to kind of read defenses and kind of go through progressions. And I don't think he's done a great job of utilizing his legs in the run game. Now, that may not all be on Russell Wilson. And if I were going to critique Arthur Smith, you look at that game last week, and I was effusive with praise for how they played in the first half of that game. That is exactly the type of football you want to see the Steelers play. They put up 10 points, which could have been 14 if they hadn't called the penalty on the touchdown and called back to George Pickens. Also, the other long pass past the 51-yard pass interference call, or actually that was a catch, wasn't it? 51-yard pass to Pickens, down inside the 5-yard line that got called back on the hold on Broderick Jones. Certainly, the Steelers put up 10 points, and that could be, you could argue that could be 21 points if things had gone their way. That was the ideal half, and that's what, if the Steelers can do that week in and week out, they're going to be one of the 5 best teams in the NFL. If they were to be able to put that half of football out there consistently, they'll win 11, 12 games. They'll win the AFC North, and they'll be a top seed going into the playoffs. But obviously, that half looks more like a mirage than the reality of Steeler football. And what we saw in the second half was a disaster. And everybody blames the penalties on what happened in the second half. Certainly, penalties played a part in that. But there's nothing that I saw in the second half in the run game or the passing game that gave me any comfort. It wasn't like they were getting chunk plays or things were happening. They were getting some penalties, but they weren't moving the ball at all. They were conservative. They couldn't move the ball on the ground. The Broncos found their footing a little bit defensively and a little bit offensively. Bo Nix was a little bit unlucky with some drop passes, but that wasn't a wonderful second half of football for the Steelers. But again, come back to the point. They're 2-0. And Mike Tomlin, his job to win football games. So here's the deal. The quarterback situation. What does Mike Tomlin do here going forward? Well, obviously, it's Friday. I've told you for 2 weeks, Justin Fields is getting the start this week. And there's no guarantee Russ is going to be 100% and get the start next week in Indianapolis. I see video, as I'm sure you've seen, if you're on Twitter, if you follow my account, Russ is kind of gingerly operating in practice. There's no, again, I'll tell you 100 times, if you have a calf injury, being explosive and pushing off is the most difficult thing. And Russ has not tried to do that, nor should he. Look, it was 4 weeks at the beginning in training camp. It's been just 3 weeks now. He's not going to do that until he knows he can run comfortably. And once you can run comfortably, then you can start kind of pushing off and start trying to be a little bit more explosive. But we aren't at that point yet, and it's Friday, and the next game is 9 days away. And if he can't go a week from today, maybe he doesn't get that start either. So the question is, does Mike take the gloves off Justin Fields to find out if he can do these things? Because I've heard people say, well, when they need to do it, they'll crank up the offense. Well, when are you going to find out what Justin Fields' capabilities are? And I think that should start this weekend. Because the Steelers are going to play a team in the San Diego Chargers that wants to play Steeler football. Jim Harbaugh has taken over in San Diego, and if you follow his trajectory, his career in San Francisco and at Michigan, obviously college, he is a dominant offensive and defensive line guy. Build from the inside, build in the trenches, and work outside. And that's what he's done. He picked Joe Alt, the tackle out of Notre Dame, with the 7th overall pick, slides him right in at right tackle. The guy's already been, he's in the conversation for 2 weeks in, obviously. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Talented guy, going to be in that position forever. Slater on the other side. Very solid tackles. And they are good. They've taken these 2 running backs from Baltimore, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and they want to run the football. And it's this type, and this is the kind of, we're going to see a game where the Steelers are going to run, they're going to look in the mirror a little bit and see a team that's been very solid defensively with Bosa and Khalil Mack, shut down their first 2 opponents, and the Patriots and the Carolina Panthers obviously haven't played what did the Patriots the first week? I'm trying to remember who they got their opening week win against. Obviously haven't played 2 talented offensive football teams, but they have been dominant. So what does Mike Tomlin do here? And I'm kind of torn a bit between, do we see Mike Tomlin take the gloves off because, A, he doesn't have to worry about the opposing crowd, about noise in the stadium. It's going to be a home crowd. And does he try to attack? Do we see more of what we saw in the first half of the game in Denver? Do we see passes down the field? Do we see that slant early in the game, 13 yards to George Pickens, where, hit him right in stride? We need to see more of that. We need to see Freiermuth over the middle of the field. Is he going to work guys in the slot? Are we going to see more of the second receivers? We've seen nothing from the other receivers. And obviously, good news, Roman Wilson went full yesterday. I expect him to get his first hat this week. And hopefully this is, look, throw him into the fire. We've seen with Fatanu, we've seen with Peyton Wilson. I would expect we see Roman Wilson actually get some snaps, get 15, 20 snaps in this game. And I'll tell you, I will be disappointed if we don't. So, Justin Fields, what is Mike Tomlin going to do? Is he ready to take the gloves off? Because my feeling has been that as soon as Russell Wilson is ready to go, he should be the starter. Let me tell you why. You know that you have this in Justin Fields. And it's been fine. But it hasn't been great. He's been just the guy that we've seen or that we know that he was in Chicago. And again, do you want to blame it on the coaching staff? Do you want to blame it on the player? Obviously, it's a little bit of both. But I think you've got to see when Russell Wilson's better what his upside is. Or Mike Tomlin could say, look, let me take the gloves off and let me see what Justin Fields can actually do. Now, I do think the Steelers have made a big mistake in not designing more run plays for Justin Fields. More plays that are designed right from the get-go for him to take the ball and be a designed run. 4 carries last week, I think it was, 8 carries last week for 27 yards. I think that included a 16-yarder, so that's 7 carries for 11. That's nothing. There's one play on a scramble that you remember, and a great job by him where he got tons of pressure coming off his right side, the left side of the defense, and was able to escape out the back and gain 16 yards down the sideline. That's a great play. but I want to see more designed runs. If you have a guy who you think is in skill level a lot more like Lamar Jackson than he is like Ben Roethlisberger, let's design an offense that utilizes those skills. And I think really for this team and in this game in particular against the Chargers and this defensive front seven, that they want to attack with the running game and definitely use Justin Fields in that. But getting back to my big overall point here is I think regardless of how things go, Mike Tomlin needs to play Justin Wilson. I told you I'd do this 100 times. Needs to play Russell Wilson when he's healthy, because here's the advantage that the Steelers are going to have. Let's say they're 3-1, they're 3-0, they're 4-1, whatever they are when Russell Wilson is healthy. You go out and you go play Russell Wilson and they win 3 games and they learn something more. The Steelers are going to be in an ideal position. They're going to know what the upside is. They're going to know that they have something more. And I assume if it went like that, then Russell Wilson's going to be the guy until he's not the guy, meaning he's going to be the guy the rest of the year if he's healthy. If it doesn't go well, if over 2 to 3 games, Russell Wilson shows that he can't, play at the level that we saw Russell Wilson play either part of last year, if you're a buyer of what he did with the Broncos, or back in his days with Seattle, well, then you have somebody else ready to go, boom, and who cares about QB controversies? And what else that does is that answers something for you or helps you answer your longer-term QB question. But I know there is, I like as Mark Caboli said on Twitter, I don't understand the national media's love of Justin Fields. Look, I understand the long-term potential of Justin Fields. I understand his athleticism, but we're not actually seeing that. And again, I only put that somewhat on Justin Fields. I put that on the coaching staff that's primary focus isn't developing Justin Fields, it's winning football games. And as boring as that has been, and as much as I would like them to, take the gloves off and open up the offense, I totally understand why they're doing what they're doing. But I do think, and this is the key here, I do think that if and when they get to Russell Wilson, they don't have to play this game of, conservative offense. They can go and let Russ cook, as they say. See what Russ has left in the tank. And I think that offense will look markedly different in terms of getting other guys involved in the offense. And whether that's Roman Wilson, whether that's even Calvin Austin, eventually Van Jefferson, but obviously George Pickens and the backs in the offense, I think there's something there. So I'm excited to watch Justin Fields again this weekend, but regardless of how things go, and maybe I'll sing a different tune Sunday night if the Steelers put up 35. I don't think I will. I think the more likely scenario is the tune I'll be singing is Russell Wilson can't get here soon enough because the Steelers only put up 17 against a good Chargers defense. Now, that doesn't mean 17 and lose. That could be 17 and win. But I just feel like if this team, if the goal is to win Super Bowls, if the goal is to compete for titles, you need to figure out what you have at the quarterback position. And through 2 weeks, we haven't figured anything out. So let's see a little bit more this week. Let's see Russell when he's healthy. And by week 7 and week 8, we are going to have a ton more information and be able to make a much more, data-driven decision about what gives the Steelers the best chance to win playoff games. But obviously, as we've been talking about, as I've said, you need to get there first and you need to win games. And that is the fine line, the tightrope that Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith are walking. And I'm not knocking them for anything they've done to this point in time. They have done what they need to do to be 2-0. Okay, let's get to some other things. Offensive line, the Broderick Jones, Dan Moore saga. Steelers' number 1 pick, Troy Fautanu, is going to be the starting right tackle for as long as he's under contract. Whether that's 4 years, 5 years, or 10 years, I don't know the answer. He is the starting right tackle. There's not going to be any more mix and match or any of that stuff. Mike Tomlin may give lip service to that because he will do that on occasion. Again, you guys are all smart enough to either not take Mike Tomlin verbatim for his word on the press conferences, whether it's Tuesday or post-game. And if you aren't, well, I'm telling you, and follow my Twitter feed, and I'll give you the answer to these things. Troy Fautanu is the guy at right tackle. So the question is, What's the deal with Broderick Jones and what's the deal with Dan Moore? Okay, again, Dan Moore has played well the past 2 weeks. And I understand that Steeler fans look at Broderick Jones, the physical specimen that he is at whatever he is, 6'7", 320 pounds, reasonably agile on his feet, and a guy who showed capability last year, particularly in the right game at the right side. I understand the eagerness to get him in his natural position at left tackle. Again, I'm not a buyer. I am not a buyer that NFL tackles can only play one side. Sure, they may have a better side. Dan Moore is a unique character. That cat can only play one side. He is the exception, not the rule. This whole idea that the Steelers have ruined Broderick Jones by having him play right tackle and then some left tackle, nonsense. I don't buy any of that. Broderick Jones can play both sides. He was a competent right tackle the second half of last year. He started 12 games there. Let's remember that. He had a bad game against Denver. His quotes were perfect. I shit the bed, played terrible. I needed to be pulled. That's what happens. He took accountability. All the people who complain about accountability. Broderick Jones took accountability, said he has to play better. He understands it. But let's get the idea that Broderick Jones should be handed the left tackle job. That's dumb. It's just, remember Kelvin Beachum. He was a 7th round pick and nobody, a guy whose body looked like he should be, hanging out with guys on the couch on Sundays, not playing starting left tackle in the NFL. But he did it. He did it well for an extended period of time. I think he's still doing it, maybe in Arizona. So Broderick Jones doesn't get the job on pedigree. And it is difficult over the, how do you work a guy in, when you're just practicing, oftentimes not in pads, a couple days a week. How do you show that you can earn that job? Well, I think the Steelers have seen enough historically of Broderick Jones and Dan Moore to understand what the capabilities of each man, the capabilities are. Okay, so this is not like, there is a body of work. And so the argument is Dan Moore's body of work isn't great. And I think that's fair. I do think Steeler fans are overly hard on their assessment of Dan Moore, but I think it's fair to say that he hasn't been a great left tackle. But he's been very good through the first 2 weeks of the season, and there's no need to make that change. The Steelers are in a luxurious position on the offensive line now to have somebody of the capability of Broderick Jones who can step in and play that position. And maybe we see that, or maybe we don't. But the answer is, if we don't, it's because Dan Moore is and has been doing his job at the left tackle spot. So, let's back off the Dan Moore criticism. Let's see how it goes week to week and move forward. Now, Spencer Anderson, he's going to lose his job the minute Isaac Seumalo is healthy. I mean, Seumalo was the Steelers' best offensive lineman last year. He is maybe, if he's not all-pro caliber, he is certainly Pro Bowl level left guard. Didn't practice at all this week. I don't think he went today, but we'll see how that comes out. But I would not expect him to be ready for the Colts game, but hopefully back for the Steelers' second home game against the Dallas Cowboys. So, okay, that does the personnel stuff. We covered Roman Wilson. We covered the quarterbacks. We covered the tackles. Let's talk about one other thing with this Steelers offense. George Pickens has looked extraordinarily good the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, what does that tell you? Look, he had Patrick Surtain on him in Denver. You know what? He was getting open. Surtain was giving him big cushions at times. I think he was a little bit nervous. Obviously, everybody's generally given away some height to George Pickens. Outstanding stuff. I mean, we can nitpick a little bit about the route running, but you know what? We've seen from the data in the first 2 weeks, George Pickens is getting open at levels that Deontay Johnson was getting open. He's getting open with the best receivers in the NFL. So that tells me one good thing. It's a great thing about George Pickens. Two, it's not a good thing about Justin Fields and the Steelers offense. The guy has 11 targets. He has 11 or 12 targets in the first 2 weeks of the season. 11 or 12 targets. Yes, some were called back by penalty. He should be getting 11 or 12 targets a game. He should be getting 7 targets a half. We've talked about it enough, right? Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson. I think the Steelers, the wide receivers not named George Pickens have like 5 catches for 28, 30 yards. 0. Throw the ball to George Pickens until the other team shows they absolutely can stop it. because to this point, they haven't shown they can stop it. He is not getting enough targets. Didn't get, he got his 2 catches were in the first half last week. He only put up 2 for 27. Now, again, we had the pass interference calls, the play called back, but he needs to be getting targets all the time. And that's a flaw. That's on the offense. It's also a little bit on Justin Fields, but, that's a little bit on Arthur Smith. So, okay, so that kind of takes us through the major things I want to get to. There's some bigger topics about the NFL, about why is passing yardage down a bit, why are offensives down. Look, as with everything in life, it's a pendulum a bit, going back and forth, offense, defense. The rule changes have obviously, over the last 10 years, have only been in favor of the offense. But you have a lot of smart guys on defense who are now had some time to adjust to things they've seen offenses do. And it's been a slow start for the offenses to this point in the season. But I would not expect that to continue. Seriously, there's too much talent in the game on the offensive side. And even though people think that maybe QB play is down because a bunch of guys over the last 5 years, the Brady, the Breeze, the Bens of the world have retired, there are still plenty of good quarterbacks in the NFL. So I'm not willing to kind of spend a lot of time delving into it. We will a little bit later in the season if it still exists. But right now, I think it's more conservatism. People understand the significance of turnovers. Certainly, Steelers have proven that. So we'll see where that goes. But something to watch this week, and I wouldn't expect to see a ton of that. The Chargers, we mentioned them a little bit at the top. They're going to come in. They want to play Steeler football. Jim Harbaugh, this is a good team at 2-0. I think the Steelers will get some benefit that Justin Herbert is not 100% healthy. He's got an ankle injury that may contain his mobility inside the pocket. So, but probably an advantage for the Steelers. But I will tell you, when you look at this Chargers roster, on the offensive side, having Joe Alt at right tackle matching up against T.J. Watt, that's the matchup of the week in the NFL. That should be dynamite. Watch that one. Joe Alt, who's a monster of a man, 6'8", the first-round pick out of Notre Dame. That should be fun to watch. And they've got Rashawn Slater, former first-round pick in 21, also on the other side. So a good, solid offensive line. They're going to try to run the football, and they want to do that with Dobbins, who's been really good the first 2 weeks, and Gus Edwards. So that'll be a challenge for the Steelers. Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi. So it should be fun to watch that kind of matchup on the offensive line. And I will tell you, big props to Cam Hayward here the first 2 weeks of the season. He has been outstanding. Skill positions, Quentin Johnson, first-round pick out of TCU last year, hasn't done much. Had a touchdown cast last week for the Chargers. Joshua Palmer, a third-round pick in 21. This is a guy who I think, if you're not a fantasy football guy, this guy is probably one of the better unknown receivers in the NFL. And then their second-round pick this year, who I was really hoping the Steelers might have a chance to draft, Lad McConkey out of Georgia, a really fun guy to watch. So that's on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, you guys know, everybody knows Joey Bosa, who's been in the league forever and constantly in the top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year. And then Khalil Mack, they made the big trade for, getting him from the Bears to add at that next level. And in the defensive backfield, Asante Samuel and Derwin James. So, the Steelers talk about not attacking the middle of the field because the Broncos had two great safeties, and then they're worried about the Falcons had 2 great safeties, and then they're worried about the Broncos. And what is Patrick Surtain going to do? Look, everybody's got good players. Holy Christ, use the whole field, please. Use the entire field. Attack the middle of the field. One last thought. I'm going to go back to this topic. People talk about, the defense is so good. Don't want to make mistakes because don't want to help the other team because the defense is so good that you score 18 points, you can win a game. How about looking at it differently? How about this? How about we go out and score some points and let the defense tee off on the other team? Or, we're a little less conservative, and you know what? We turn the ball over, but our defense is so damn good that they can bail us out. I don't know that you need to approach everything with the conservative mindset that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are approaching it with. But as I said, I'm talking out both sides of my mouth because I'm not sure I wouldn't do exactly the same thing with Justin Fields at quarterback. And that's why, again, maybe that's why I'm pining a little bit to see Russell Wilson, because I do think we will see more of that. I don't think, as much as I'd like it, we will see that this week with Justin Fields. So, what do I think? Steelers are going to win this game again. I want to say they're going to win 28-13 and they're going to score some points, but I think we're going to see more of the same. I think the Chargers are a very good football team. I think the Steelers are only favored by 1.5, so take away home field advantage. It's kind of a coin flip. Maybe even Vegas thinks Chargers are a little better team. Why did they think that? Because the Chargers' offense is better than the Steelers' offense. They'll all argue that the Steelers' defense is a little better than Chargers' defense. So I think this will be a really good game. I do think it'll be a close game. As I say, the turnover battle will tell you who wins every game. And here I am espousing more aggressive on the offense. But the Steelers have not turned the ball over this year. Now remember, that's a little bit of an anomaly. They've had great fumble luck. They haven't lost any of their fumbles. So they've been fortuitous in that way, but they've been able to turn over the other team a couple times, at least in each game. So again, that's going to be a key this game. You've got Boz, who is a great weapon. But give me the Steelers in this one, 21-17. They get another win. I'll come back with some picks on Sunday. We'll talk a little bit more about the NFL next week again. I'm still working on the cadence, still thinking about names. David Toddcast, maybe. It's not just going to be a Steelers podcast at the end of the day if we get this rolling, and we will work on distribution. Also, if you could give me some feedback on YouTube in the comments or on Twitter, I'd appreciate it. Your thoughts on length, on topics, on all that stuff. Maybe we'll get into a little Q&A midweek next week. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. Let's see how the Steelers do. I'll catch up with you probably Sunday night. Thanks for being with me, David Todd.